Hi, this is Elizabeth Stephen, Business Librarian at Western. This is a video to talk about using IBUSWorld to find industry information for your Marketing 382 class. Starting at this page, I'm just going to scroll down and click on IBUSWorld. IBUSWorld is our main industry database. They are marketing industry reports. So you need to find information related to radio. You are doing research on local or community radio. What you're going to find in IBUSWorld is going to be radio at like that very high level. It's going to look at an industry. It's not going to give you specifically information on community or local radio. And then also when you're searching, you need to remember that you need to think about radio as far as traditional radio as well as internet or streaming. So I am just going to do a simple search and just type in radio, and you'll see right away radio broadcasting in the US, internet radio broadcasting in the US. I'm going to start with radio broadcasting and then click on this first one. Now, if we look at this definition, industry definition, they do say that the industry consists of radio stations, networks, and syndicates that transmit audio programming. This is a slightly different definition that you might find in other areas. Traditionally, radio stations are considered separate from radio broadcasters or radio networks because networks were those that were creating the programming. In this case, they combine them all together. Our IBUS reports are broken down into multiple chapters. We start with about this industry, then you get into industry at a glance, performance, outlook, etc. This first page is going to give you the definition, and then supply chain. Where is their money coming from? Other related companies. So here you'll see related industries, and you'll see right here, internet, publishing, and broadcasting. That's going to be probably different than internet radio. Major players. The major players are going to be those larger syndicates. They're not going to get down into local radio. Main activities, similar industry, industry jargon, and then a glossary. Let's take a look and go through this report a little bit. Our industry at a glance, structure, executive summary. The executive summary is just going to give you a very brief overview. You'll see a couple of things that might be useful. This idea of terrestrial radio, that's going to be that traditional on-air or over-air broadcasting. And then you're going to see satellite radio. Satellite radio is going to be a little different. So these are also some search terms when you're thinking about searching for things maybe in Business Source Complete or the Common Mass Media database. Maybe look for terrestrial radio versus satellite radio or that type of thing. Other terms and other things to search with. So industry revenue is expected to grow. And so that is industry performance, current performance, advertising and competition, satellite growth, industry outlook. So this first sentence, over the 5 years to 2022, radio broadcasters will endure increasing competition from music streaming and podcasts. So that's definitely something to think about, and then start thinking about how people listen to radio, where they listen to radio. Slow growth. Radio commercials have been stable, and then looking at the spotlight on satellite, because that is where some of that industry growth is happening, probably more so than terrestrial radio. Let's look at the competitive landscape. This is where we start getting into kind of how the industry breaks down, where the costs are coming from, and the competition. Major companies. This is going to look at market share. Now again, the larger companies are going to be the ones that will be featured here. Smaller companies will be down here towards the bottom. Now again, in order to be considered a major player, you have to have a market share of at least, I think, 5%. So things like local or community radio here in Bellingham are not going to fill that. Something to remember when you're looking at information related to these larger companies, the challenges that these companies are facing are going to be similar to some of the challenges that local or community radio are going to be facing, especially when you start thinking about competition related to satellite radio or internet radio. So using this report as a way to find out, to see that bigger, broader picture is related to radio stations, radio broadcasting, and then also seeing some of the challenges that maybe some of the bigger stations are facing and how can those be compared, or how some of those challenges can be related to local or community radio. We can go back to IBUSWorld, search for radio. So while satellite radio is considered something of kind of like the growth area in radio broadcasting, right up here we see this first sentence. So there's mixed signals. Online radio is going to grow, but online streaming is still a threat. So online streaming, we're thinking about things like Spotify, that type of product. So definition. So we look at major players. Pandora is going to be one of the major players in there. And it's going to be broken down in the same thing. Industry at a glance, industry performance, industry outlook. Let's take a look at industry outlook. Will to continue to grow over the next 5 years, but at a slower rate. Moderate profit growth, and the industry is growing. And then life cycle. If we scroll up and look at major companies, iHeartMedia and Pandora. Pandora is the largest player in the industry. Some smaller companies. So both of these together are probably going to give you a pretty solid overview of the radio industry, again, at that higher level. Something to think about. This is going to give you that bigger, broader picture, and then looking at Business Source Complete for things related to commercial radio, community radio, or non-commercial radio will probably give you something a little more specific. You might want to consider going into Business Source Complete and searching for articles or information related to Pandora or some of the other companies mentioned in the radio broadcasting report. While they are larger, you can often find company reports in Business Source Complete related to those companies, and they will have a SWOT analysis and why the strengths and weaknesses of those individual companies will be unique to those companies, the opportunities and threats, which are those external things, the things that those companies cannot control, may very well be some of the same things that are going to be faced by a local or a community radio station. So using this as a way, using these reports to get that broader overview, but also come up with other ideas and terms and companies to search for in Business Source Complete, doing all this together should give you a pretty good overview of both that higher level industry, higher level information related to radio and broadcasting, and even maybe a little local or smaller level in broadcasting. Again, if you need any help, you can contact me. My name is Elizabeth Stephen. Best way to get a hold of me is by email. Thanks.